Last time on Shadow Piece, the battle between the jailer beasts controlled by Sadi and the Sin of Greed Olympus heated up. One by one, the adventurer managed to defeat the false awakened Zoan users, but as he brought them to the ground, Sadi quickly pulled them to herself with her whip and started absorbing all of the powers in a quick process. Especially when Olympus stopped holding back and started using the internal destruction property of advanced armament Haki, he accelerated the result of this battle. However, by increasing the scent of danger coming from him, he also put the fear of death into Minotauros. The strongest of the jailer beasts managed to avoid a couple of attacks, but when he was backed into a corner, he changed. Through the sheer need to survive, Minotauros turned his false awakening into a real one. His body grew in size, his horns darkened, and his eyes turned red. But most importantly, a dark veil of clouds sprouted on his back. This surprised both Sadi and Olympus. But Olympus wasn't just about to let his opponent grow accustomed to this new situation. After a quick exchange of attacks, where neither side even attempted to dodge, Olympus showed that he was still far superior to the bull that regained consciousness. Too bad. If all of you beasts were like this from the start, you might have actually been a real challenge. The Sin of Greed, one of the strongest men alive, had enough. His next punch went to the chest of the Minotauros, and with the power of internal destruction blasted a hole straight through him. That was it. End of the jailer beasts. Defeated by a single man, a single adventurer, Minotauros was slowly falling over, but even before he could hit the ground, his body got pulled towards Sadi by her whip. It sucked and sucked and sucked, and because of Minotauros' sudden true awakening, she could absorb so much more power from his body, until he was also just an empty husk, devoid of any energy. So it has come to this. Olympus turned around to face the blonde woman in her skimpy red devil outfit. I will say the same thing to you that you said to me earlier. Olympus pointed down at his feet. Get on your knees, beg for mercy, and let me out of this dimension. Maybe then you can see the sun rise again another day. But the woman only laughed. She was not afraid, especially not now that she had absorbed even more power than she had originally planned for this fight. Your fancy words will not change anything, sinner. There's only one way for this to end, and that is with death. She swung her whip, this time with full force and not one of her previous speed focus attacks, and yet Olympus still just caught it and looked at her. Whips are not toys for young people like you. If I had a whip that could withstand my Haki, I would teach you that lesson, but for now, this will have to do. Sin of Greed pulled on the whip, sending her flying straight through the air right towards him. You don't know who you are messing with. The goddess of death is not on your side in this war. Olympus did not mean it in any sort of philosophical way. He was talking quite literally, even if that part was lost on the Impel Down head guard, as in fact the Fleet of Death had the goddess of death Hisanashi on their side, as it was the power that Moria held with his devil fruit. The muscles on the arm of the Sin of Greed grew as he flexed and covered it with armament Haki again, and when Sadi was in reach, he unleashed the power of a man that fought for freedom, for a world that was free to know everything that they wanted to know. Connected directly with Sadi's otherwise beautiful face and contorted it in a hideous manner, shattering her jawbone in the process. She flew away from Olympus at the speed of sound, crashing into the edge of the arena dimension, leaving a path of blood where she had zoomed through. Without an intact jaw, it proved to be difficult to speak, but Sadi still had something to say to her opponent. Well, it seems like you actually are strong as well. I thought you were wanted only dead, only because of your crime of stealing Red Poneglyph. Her whip attack landed to the right and left of Olympus in quick succession, closing in on him with every single swipe. He started sprinting towards Sadi as the threatening whip made that the only path he could follow. A colorless, endless plain stretched in all directions. No walls, no grounds, at least visible, just white everywhere. A blank dimension where shadows floated beneath the feet of the combatants. Two dots of life in a dead, infinite canvas. Sadi licked her lips, standing with her hips cocked and her whip trailing like a serpent behind her. Her high heels clicked against the invisible floor, echoing louder than they should in this realm. Her eyes burned with delight. A muscle brute like you in a place like this. How deliciously hopeless. Olympus didn't reply. His cape flapped, even though there was no wind, and he cracked his knuckles like the firing of cannonballs. Veins bulged down his forearms. His jaw was firm. his expression sharp, angry but focused. Stoic, a general surveying the battlefield. Sadi moved first now. The whip snapped, faster than sight. A crimson blur tore through the void, aiming straight for Olympus's face, but he stepped forward, letting it lash across his shoulder instead. The hooked tip grazed skin and drew blood, but he didn't flinch at all. You're slow. He swung. The punch was like a cannon shot. Sadi's eyes widened as she flipped backwards. Her spine arched like a dancer's. The blow passed inches from her corset, and the sheer wind pressure sent her flying 10 meters before she twisted mid-air and landed in a crouch. "Oh, you pack a punch," she hissed with a delighted shiver. "Let's see how much it takes to make you beg." She spun, her whip unfurling in a brutal 6-lash combo. Olympus blocked the first with his forearm, but the next two wrapped around his left leg and right shoulder, hooks spit into a flash. "Gotcha!" She grinned, yanking hard. Olympus staggered, just for a moment. Then his muscles bulged with a roar. He flexed, snapping the whip coils like a rope against a rising tide. Blood ran down his limbs, but he charged forward without pause, fist raised. "Yonta Maria! Collapsing charge!" The entire dimension seemed to tilt. His footfalls grew heavier, louder, each step creating shockwaves in the airless space. Sadi leapt away, cracking her whip behind her like a lifeline, flipping backwards again and again to keep distance, but she was still grinning. When he finally caught up, she went low, coiling the whip around his leg again, then yanking to trip him. Olympus fell forward, and she surged in with gleaming eyes. "Let's try full body contact." The whip lashed across his back 6 times in a heartbeat, crisscrossing into bloody X's. But as she raised her arm for a finishing strike, his hand snapped up and caught her wrist mid-swing. Her eyes went wide. "What?" "You're reckless," he growled. Then he lifted her, one-handed, and hurled her like a javelin. Sadi slammed into the edge of the arena dimension 30 meters away, bouncing back and tumbling before she rolled onto her knees. Hair disheveled, clothes torn, laughing breathlessly. "Yes, now that's more like it." Blood dripped from both of them. She stood, arching her back with a wicked smile. He stepped forward, flexing his fists again, his breath steady despite the damage. They locked eyes across the void. Strength versus sadism. Brute force against calculated cruelty. The white world trembled, not from the environment, but from the weight of their fight. Sadi's whip cracked again. Once, twice, blinding arcs of red against the white void. Each strike aimed to cripple, not kill. She circled Olympus like a lioness playing with her prey, her breath ragged but her grin sharp. "You're bleeding everywhere, big guy. You're strong, yes, but how much more can your body take?" Olympus didn't answer. He pressed forward, heavy boot falls pounding through the empty dimension. The blood on his chest and arms ran freely now, but his eyes, unyielding, focused. Sadi lashed again, aiming for the eyes this time. He caught the whip in mid-air with both hands. "Huh?" Before she could react, Olympus pulled again. She flew towards him like a ragdoll, whip still wrapped in his iron grip. In that split second, her instinct screamed at her to twist mid-air, to roll, to land on his shoulders and strike, but Olympus spun. He jumped into the air and came down again. "Yonta Maria! Final press!" He launched a full-body clothesline mid-spin. His forearm slammed into her chest with the force of a battering ram. Sadi's eyes bulged as the air was blasted from her lungs. She flipped mid-air, crashing hard onto the invisible ground. With a bone-rattling thud, her whip spiraling away. Her body twitched. She tried to rise. A high heel scraped against the floor. She got to one knee, then collapsed again, coughing and gritting her teeth. Not bad for a meat wall." Olympus approached slowly, towering over her. His breath was deep but measured. "You fight like chaos. Waste your power on cruelty." He raised a fist, glowing with tension and haki, then lowered it in one move. "You're finished!" Sadi slumped to the ground with a frustrated hiss, chest heaving. "Fine, be boring then." Her whip shimmered in the distance, out of reach. The battle was over. In the endless white void, Olympus stood victorious, bloodied, bruised, but unbroken. The weight of his final blow still echoed when the arena realm shattered, and Olympus returned to the wooden floor of his ship, returning to Columbus and the rest of the Impel Down guards. And this is the end of today's episode of Shadow Piece. Yes, Olympus came out victorious. I guess most of you could have predicted that, but I still hope that you could enjoy this battle even if the outcome might have been somewhat predictable. But for now, that's all from me for today. All that's left to be said is stay happy, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay cultured. Pyro out. Bye!